All right, audio check, audio check. Audio check, audio check. All right, it appears that things are working. Welcome back, everyone. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Phil Gallagher, a legacy death and taxes enthusiast, and today I'm going to be streaming with Red, White, Death and Taxes. Before I start up this stream, I want to take a couple of minutes to just show you my build and how it differs from some of the other common builds that you're seeing these days. So this build is specifically Red, White, Death, and Taxes. The splash is primarily for Magus of the Moon and Pia in Kieran Nalar. This splash sort of gives you two different things that matter. It gives you sort of a big haymaker against a lot of the dual land heavy decks of the format in Magus of the Moon, and against control decks it gives you this sort of late game inevitability with Pia and Kieran Nalar. While this card might not seem all that impressive, when backed up by Caracas and an Ether Vial at 4, that combination usually proves just about unbeatable for any sort of control deck. Most of the list is pretty stock, although you can see we're playing a very spicy Rest in Peace to help cover the 2-drop slot here. The sideboard isn't anything too special. We didn't have room for Sword of War and Peace this time around, which sort of makes me sad. But the sideboard is sort of removal heavy. You can see that we've got like all of these paths, a Cunning Spark Mage, this Leon and Relic Warder, and that's part of a package that is sort of utility. These three cards, Leon and Relic Warder, Sanctum Prelate, and Mirran Crusader, all help to really sort of improve random matchups here and there. It's just a great combination to go with Recruiter of the Guard here. So let's kind of look at what makes this different from, say, a traditional Death and Taxes list. So this is the 4 Crusader build that I've been playing for quite a long time, and I was pretty happy with its results overall. So you can see there's no 4-drops here. There's nothing like Palace Jailer in this deck. There's 23 lands as opposed to 24 lands, and that's something you really need with this red-white build, since you have 3 different creature-based 4-drops that you're regularly going to be playing. Like, the 2 Cataclysms here are sort of equivalent in mana cost to the Gideon, so I don't really count those. But beyond those, you have 3 more 4-drops, and that's something you have to be acutely aware of. There's also less utility in the mono white build. You know, if you look, we are playing 4 Mirran Crusader as a way to just absolutely hate on check pile. 4 Mirran Crusader. Get back to Flicker Wisp. And so because of this, that means that we have fewer tutorable options with Recruiter. We have a lot of just good generic stuff. And as far as the only weird tutor target we have, that's Sanctum Prelate. So the Prelate locks up a bunch of random matchups, and that's why it's in the main deck of the white deck. But we're trying to lean on Magus of the Moon as the card to lock up matchups in the red deck instead, and so it sort of plays the role of Sanctum Prelate. That's why Sanctum Prelate got demoted to the sideboard over here. I'm sort of sad to not have Mirran Crusader in the main deck of this build, but I'm okay with that decision overall based on my games so far, because while this is really good against decks like Bug and Check Pile, Magus of the Moon, Pia, and Kieran Nalar are good in a lot of the same sorts of matchup. Hey, afternoon, welcome, the Tonic Booth. So let's contrast this to yet another build that has been going around recently. This is Aaron Relentless's build of D&T. It's the Judge's Familiar version. So in case you're not familiar with Judge's Familiar, can I double click on this to make it bigger or anything? Alright, it is a 1 white card, 1/1 flyer, sacrifice Judge's Familiar, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1. Good morning, good sir. You might want to extract this preface to today's streaming session as a FAQs video and link to it in your stream description to better address questions like how is red-white better than mono-white? Yes, actually I am going to shoot a separate, longer video version of what I am doing right now. I 100% agree with you, Scudo, because these questions are coming up a lot on the stream. So what is this Judge's Familiar build doing? So if we look at the mana curve for, say, the red-white deck, you'll notice that a lot of it is shifted in this direction. If you look at it in the mono-white deck, you'll notice that it's very heavy at the 3-drop slot. But if you look at the Judge's Familiar build here, we can see that our curve has drastically shifted in the direction towards a lower average converted mana cost. So this means that the deck is much better against early combo decks. You have another turn 1 play that's relevant against things like Ant, Tess, Sneak and Show, and any other spell-based combo matchup. And this is also a big surprise. Judge's Familiar coming off of a Ether Vial on 1 is something that basically no one will ever be playing around. And so it'll do things like you'll cast a turn 2 Stoneforge, your opponent will daze it, you vial in the Judge's Familiar, and then you just absolutely get them with that spell. This is the Judge's Familiar build that I played that splashed black in the sideboard for Orzhov Pontiff. Here is Aaron Relentless's build. He's gotten a couple of 5-0s with it, and I think a top 8 in one of the recent Legacy challenges with it as well. And he seems to really like it. I've talked to him a little bit. Of note, he played a Horizon Canopy over this second Cavern of Souls here, although I don't have a Horizon Canopy yet on Moto, and it costs like $27 or something silly like that. If I start taking the Judge's Familiar build more seriously instead of just playing for fun, I will probably get myself a Horizon Canopy. It seems like a good fit in this deck. The reason Cavern of Souls is slightly less good here is because you have 4 birds in your deck, and bird doesn't overlap with anything else, so it feels pretty bad if you have to put a turn 1 Cavern on bird, and then you're sort of effectively down a white source for everything else that's going on. So those are sort of the 3 big builds of Death and Taxes that are going around right now. This is a little bit different from what people were playing about 2 or 3 months ago, where there was sort of an even split in the main between things like Serra Avenger and Mirren Crusader. And there's nothing wrong with a build like this right now. I'm shying away from Serra Avenger because of the amount of Baleful Strix that's running around, as well as the amount of extra black removal. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into a league with red-white taxes. I'm trying to get to 100 matches with it. I'm getting pretty close as of right now. So my current record with the red-white taxes build is 54-29. So at 83 matches, I'm sitting at a 65% win rate, and that's pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. At the end of my 129 matches with my last mono-white build, I ended up at about 60%, although my pairings weren't necessarily great. I got paired against a whole bunch of Belcher and Sneak and Show, which are very bad matchups for the deck as of right now. Alright, let's go ahead and get to it. Alright. I won the die roll I would like to play first. No information on what my opponent is playing. We're going to keep this hand. It is quite good. It has both an Aether Vial and a Thalia. Those are the sorts of things that we are absolutely looking for in an opening hand. I'm going to take just a second and get my spreadsheet pulled up here. We are on the play. We are facing Phryz. We are facing Friziel in game 1 here. So a lot of times with this build, you want to hold your fetch lands for as long as possible. So, um, in case you draw a Magus, so I'm going to go ahead and lead on Wasteland Ether Vial rather than just fetch Plains Ether Vial. The only way this gets punished is like by some combination of like Force of Will on that spell plus a Stifle for our own fetch land. Alright, so we are playing against the Gitaxian Probe deck. That can mean a lot of things, ranging from Storm to Grixis Delver, so we can't really make any conclusions yet about what's going on. Although I can probably say that this turn 2 Thalia is going to be good against any deck that my opponent can be playing with Gitaxian Probe in it. Well, these Gitaxian Probes are maybe digging... Nope. Nope, my opponent does have a land. My opponent is thinking hard here. That's probably good for us. That might mean they don't have enough resources to go off. That might mean they're worried about fetching a non-basic land that's going to get wastelanded. So like this might be a Cabal Therapy on a thought. Oh, my opponent is just going for the gusto here. Archmage, I agree. That is indeed very sad. Ugh. Fair and balanced Magic. Yes, I absolutely agree. Alright, so my opponent is playing Ant. Game 1 results lost. Got turn 1. Had Thalia. Womp womp. Oh yeah, oh boy, turned on the stream to a Dark Petition being resolved. Yeah, we were on the play, we had Thalia, yes, my opponent had 2 probes either in their opener or probed into probe, and they had just about the exact perfect sequence of cards to go off on very slim margins there. In before you matched 5 times versus Ant and lose turn 1 every time. I'm not too worried about it. That sort of thing can happen, but it's rare. Alright, so we are going to bring in Aethersworn Canonist because it's great. Rest in Peace because it's pretty good. Sanctum Prelate because, you know, locking them out of either 2 or 4 drops is very, very good. We're going to start by pulling out these Swords to Plowshares. They're pretty dead. We're going to pull out Pia and Kieran and Palace Jailer. Those cards are just absolutely too slow to matter here. And then beyond that, we have some choices as for other things that we can do. We can trim the Stoneforge package, like for example, this Jitte is going to be pretty bad. And then we have sort of these 4 mediocre cards that we could bring in as well. And these Magus of the Moon aren't necessarily great either. Our mana is probably better spent disrupting them in other ways. We can mostly play as a mono-white deck for these post-sideboard games. So you might be asking, why are you bringing in Cataclysm? That card is bad in this matchup. You are correct. This card is bad in this matchup. But sometimes your opponent is forced to just go and make a bunch of goblins and hope that that is good enough. Cataclysm is something that is an sort of, well, an oh shit button against a bunch of goblins, to be frank. It's not great. It's not what you want. Something like Orzhov Pontiff or Holy Light would be much better. But other than Stoneforge Mystic, we don't have a ton of things that can actually deal with goblins. Cataclysm is one of those things that can deal with it. I would like to play first. So what we have is a reasonable looking hand against decks that aren't unfair. But this deck is unfair, so we need to mulligan this hand to have just anything that interacts. Okay. Do I want to try to scry for a land, in which case I have 2 potential turn 2 plays, or do I want to ship this hand for a 5 that is more reasonable? So we have 23 lands left in the deck, which means we're about 50% to hit a land in our first draw. We have a scry, and we have 2 draws in order to hit a land. If my opponent Cabal Therapies away this Thalia, I still have a relevant turn 2 play. Ugh, that is not great. I will go ahead and keep it, though. It's questionable. And we got the land. So we put our land on top, we play Flooded Strand, and we do not fetch. So Moxall, a 5-card hand can be better if it has 2 lands and a Thalia or an Aethersworn Catalyst. Like anything that has safe land 2-drop is arguably better. Alright, so we are going to lose our Thalia here, but we will have Rest in Peace as a disruptive turn 2 play. Ooh, the opponent names Rest in Peace. So what this means is the opponent likely has some card like Abrupt Decay or Fatal Push or Chain of Vapor, excuse me, to deal with the Thalia. So I expect this will make things annoying for my opponent for 1 to 2 turns, but not long term. Yes, Dread of Night and Massacre are other things that might be in my future. Yep, okay, there's the Dread of Night. Alright, so now we have the Sanctum Prelate, and we need to decide what we would like to put it on. Solway, hello, Goblin Lackey. The Sanctum Prelate can go on 4 to stop both the win conditions and Massacre, or it can go on 2 to stop Cabal Ritual and Infernal Tutor, as well as things like Abrupt Decay. What do I want to do given my position? It's unlikely that my opponent will have both Dread of Night and Massacre. So while putting Sanctum Prelate 4 will shut off their win conditions and make it so they can't win, it won't necessarily stop other things that would be annoying for us. Putting it on 2 stops one of their tutors and one of their rituals. That's probably better right now. It is possible to lose through that, but my follow-up play will be Recruiter of the Guard, It'll Die to Dread of Night, followed by Aethersworn Canonist. So I think I like putting it on 2. If I put it on 4, it also stops my Cataclysm, which is an out to my opponent just making a bunch of Goblin tokens. Of note, this does shut off me casting a Rest in Peace. Okay, yeah, Tonic, that's a good point. I can't make goblins if I put it on 4 anyway. So 2 stops the Burning Wish in the first place. So we'll play this nice Recruiter of the Guard into the Dread of Night. And we will search up our good friend Aethersworn Canonist. Of note, I do have the option to get the Leonin Relic Order right now to get rid of this Dread of Night, but my priority is keeping my opponent from winning, and Aethersworn Canonist plus Sanctum Prelate should pretty easily do that. I think getting the Relic Warder while opening up a lot of your other draws will give my opponent too many outs. Like, one spell that gets the Prelate off the table will probably be very good if I just go and get the Relic Warder here. So I never play around a second Dread of Night, just to throw this information out here for the chat. Because when that, like, if your opponent has double Dread of Night, like, you are just going to lose. In one of my previous articles, I showed the time I won through double Dread of Night, where my opponent killed themselves with Ad Nauseam. That's about what has to happen for your opponent to go and lose the matchup at that point when they have double Dread of Night. Alright, so chat, one of the things we need to think about is whether or not we would like to go and cast this Cataclysm to take out 2 of my opponent's lands. If I do so, I put myself down to 1 land, but my opponent will lose 2. Alternatively, I can just wasteland my opponent and keep my own lands. If I Cataclysm, I can choose Sanctum Prelate as creature and Aethersworn Canonist as artifact. Yes, a Stoneforge would be clutch. Our clock is pretty slow here, which is a little bit unfortunate. How much does taking my opponent off of 2 mana versus 1 mana really matter here? So Cataclysm then Waste is not going to happen, because if I keep Wasteland and I have to pick first, then my opponent will keep Island, so that doesn't happen. I would really like to be able to cast another creature if I get one, especially a Stoneforge Mystic. So I'm going to go ahead and just Wasteland, and we're going to take them off the Bayou so that Abrupt Decay is not a card they can cast unless they have it right here. And they can't cast it anyway because of this Sanctum Prelate. But, you know, if the Prelate gets bounced or something, this is one less thing we need to worry about. Yeah, so they do have a couple outs. The 2-drop ones like Abrupt Decay aren't going to do it. So like they can't Echo in Truth. They can have Chain of Vapor, they can have Fatal Push, a second Dread of Night would do it. And the sort of the big issue for them is that they would need probably 2 things to clear this board. Like the first one can get the Prelate off the board, and that might open up a 2-drop spell like, say, Abrupt Decay or Echoing Truth to get the Canonist off the board. But to like use 2 cards to deal with those and then still win in 1 turn would be tricky. All right, that is decent. We're gonna play the second Canonist. You know, if they have a second Dread of Night or something, so be it. But it's going to take something of that caliber in order to get through this board now. We have our opponent on a 2-turn clock with 3 must-answer cards. I think my opponent is tapping 2 mana and realizing that Sanctum Prelate is on 2 and they can't do that. They're trying to cast the 2-drop again. It is still not working. Sanctum Prelate being real bros here. Yeah, Sanctum or Flicker Wisp absolutely would bounce his Dread of Night, and if I didn't click too fast, I would have done that. That was a That was a good play that I just missed. So the I don't know. Is the stream really choppy? I would like to know that. Stream's locked up for me after a couple of refreshes. Huh. Maybe I will like reboot the stream or something like that. Don't know what's going on there. Okay, so the reason I didn't even think about the Flicker Wisp play is because I was excited about getting to Cataclysm away all of these Lion's Eye diamonds. So I didn't even think through that option there. Camera is choppy and everything else is good. I believe that. This is a low quality camera. At some point I will probably upgrade and get something a little bit better. You know, this is just one of those sort of external Logitech ones. It's not anything fancy. I'm also leaning over quite a bit to poke at things on my laptop, so that probably doesn't help either. Alright, so game 2, we are on the play. We win. We have lots of hate bearers. Okay, so now what I need to ask myself is, does knowing my opponent has a bunch of Dread of Knights change anything about what I want to do? Because I can bring in things that are on non-white bodies in order to sort of mitigate that. So Flicker Wisp, for example, isn't great against Dread of Knight, or against Ant more generally. So I could do something like trim 2 Flicker Wisps to go and bring in like 2 Magus of the Moon or something like that, just as non-white bodies. Flicker Wisp doesn't have a lot of utility in this matchup unless my opponent does something bad. Like, if my opponent sequences poorly, I can blink out an LED and they don't get to use it. Otherwise, Flicker Wisp's job is, like, turn 4 off Ether Vial, deny 1 mana for 1 turn, or save someone from a removal spell. Don't really love playing the Magus, but I guess we can do that. And we've still left ourselves a Flicker Wisp in the desk so that we can do the good old combo of Recruiter of the Guard, Flicker Wisp, Recruiter if we need to. This hand is great. Not a lot to say here. You know, it has Thalia, it has Rest in Peace, it has an answer to Dread of Night, it has a Stoneport for Batterskull. You know, that's everything we want. We just have to see if we die on turn 2. So my opponent casts the end step Brainstorm, which means they are probably close to going off because they're not waiting for value on it to fetch away some card. Alright, I like it when my opponent casts Ponder instead of just starting to go off. Yeah, Tonic, turning off their fetches is a non-zero factor. I agree. It's not necessarily a strong enough reason to play Magus in the first place, but it's a non-zero thing. It also like stops Bayou being good against uh, or good for casting Abrupt Decay. We will go ahead and cast the Thalia, see if my opponent has the Dread of Night for it. Alright, so chat, something to start thinking about is what do we want to do with this Leonin Relic Order right here? Do we want to cast it and snag the LED, or do we want to cast the Rest in Peace instead? I can cast Leonin Relic Order and a Stoneforge next turn if I get a white source. But this Rest in Peace is going to cost 3 mana. So the question is, do I value shutting off my opponent's Cabal Rituals and Past in Flames kill, or do I value getting rid of that LED? It's a tricky one. Both lines are pretty similar in terms of power level. I'm going to go ahead and play the Relic Order, even though it's not necessarily the most mana efficient play, because it's going to be very hard for my opponent to go off through this Thalia without that Lion's Eye Diamond. So my plan is get the Leonin Relic Order in play, allow that to be another thing that's presenting pressure, so I'm doing 4 a turn rather than 2 a turn, and then we'll follow up with Rest in Peace as sort of the finisher on the following turn. Yeah, so since he committed the Mana Rocks to the table, that shows me that he has the possibility of potentially going off. Yeah, I agree. That is a show of, like, moving in some direction, like, towards going off. So there are plenty of lines we could take this turn, but I'm just going to go ahead and take the Rest in Peace line. We're just going to keep deploying relevant cards. You know, Mom will die to Dread of Night. It doesn't really matter how quickly my my clock is, so I don't really need to increase it with the Stoneforge at all. So we're going to play Rest in Peace and then follow it up with the Mom, rather than doing something like Mom Stoneforge. Double Port would be a fine line as well. So it's my plan to play out this Mom, and then we will double port for the rest of the game. We probably won't cast another spell. So I am not going to attack with Mother of Runes here. My opponent is on a 3-turn clock with just the 2 creatures attacking, and is also on a 3-turn clock with all of these creatures attacking. So we'll take the 3-turn clock. Hi to Power 86. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. I'm very happy to finally be streaming. It feels great. It's a lot of fun. Took me a little longer to get set up than I might have initially wanted, but so be it. So we could play this Stoneforge here. If we play the Stoneforge, then we can vial in the equipment next turn. So my opponent would have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, the Stoneforge would present lethal with Sword of Fire and Ice. Is that better than double port and giving them 2 draw steps? Actually, that might be better. If my opponent has a Dread of Night, I lose a lot of my board, and then I'm down to a Fortune clock. Alright, Shadow Lad, I will play that Stoneforge. Oh, just end step, hard ad nauseum. Interesting. The D&T tombstone reads, didn't port, died. That's fair. Our opponent is at a very precarious life total. Yeah, they gotta keep going or they're just gonna die. They haven't found an answer to Thalia yet. My opponent has stopped. Alright, so now we have a choice. Do we want to port them off a black source, or do we want to port them off a volcanic island? There is some weird world where they bounce this Rest in Peace and try to go off that way through a Thalia as well. There's not really much that they can do with 2 black sources that they couldn't do with 1, because they'll certainly have something like a Dark Ritual to give them multiple black mana. So I will go ahead and port this volcanic island. Porting Trop could shut them off of Abrupt Decay, but Abrupt Decay on Rest in Peace at a 3 mana rate is probably not good enough. A D&T player lost a mono red sneak attack on stream in the GP because they played a Containment Priest in response to the sneak attack activation instead of the sneak attack itself. Yep, and that's why we don't get greedy, Archmage. You learn little things like that by playing over time. Alright, so we win our game versus Ant pretty handily. So we got game 1 with Hate Bears. We had Thalia game 1 and we're on the play, but they turned 1 to us. Game 2, we had a bunch of bears and Cataclysm for all my opponent's Lion's Eye Diamonds. And then game 3, we were on the draw and we won. And how did we win, really? It was really Thalia. Backed up by my own Relic Warder and Rest in Peace. Starting this league off well. Getting blown out by missequencing is the best way to learn. Yes, exactly. I am a teacher, and I'm a very, very big believer in the idea that you learn by making mistakes. It is when you mess up that you really learn. And by that I mean it's when you mess up and you sit down and you look at it and say, I have fucked up here. Moxall, playing D&T for a while means you've learned by getting blown out. Yes. Yes, it does. I don't know how many losses I've had because I played the wrong 2-drop. I played the wrong land. I have sequenced my spells wrong. I didn't do a pump fake vial activation first and then got Containment Priest response to the vial that mattered. There are so many little tiny things that matter. And they add up. Like I even missed something in that game. Or excuse me, in that match. Like I missed that I just had the Flicker Wisp kill on board if I Flicker Wisp the Dreadifite and just swung in for 6. Because I was so excited about cataclysming away 2 of my opponent's lands and 3 of their artifacts. Grizzled Wizard, you say? My opponent was last seen on Sneak and Show about a month ago. This hand does nothing, so we're going to mulligan it. This hand is great. My opponent has mulliganed to 5 cards. We have a Stoneforge Mystic here. Do I want that card? I don't really have a lot going on in terms of creature-based pressure. It's not necessarily the card I want if my opponent is Sneak and Show, but it's not necessarily a bad card. Like it's not a land, it's not irrelevant. So we will go ahead and put that on top. All right. So Grizzled Wizard. Yeah, I am checking MTG Goldfish 5-0 finishes to see what my opponent is on. Yes, and so it lists all 5-0 finishes that got reported. Only a fraction of the 5-0s actually get reported every day. I, for example, have 4 or 5 finishes, 5-0 finishes with this red-white D&T build, but I think only 1 of them got reported. So some small percentage of them gets through, and there's rules on which ones do and don't get reported. We are going to lead on Wasteland Ether Vial rather than Caracas Ether Vial, both to protect our white source from an opposing card and to hide the fact that we have Caracas in case our opponent goes and does something like show and tells in a creature. Hashtag free the data, I agree. Why is 1v1 Commander 100% reported? Why can't Legacy be like that? Okay, and now we have the choice. Do I want to jam this Thalia into potential counter magic, or do I want to hold it? If I hold it, it 100% resolves, but my opponent, can just cast a show and tell or something like that with impunity. I'm going to go ahead and cast the Thalia here. The upside, if it resolves, is huge, and if my opponent Force of Wills it, they are down to 2 cards and are not likely to go off anytime soon. Oh, it's because of the size. It's not any special rule that was given to them, I see. Okay, yeah, so Force of Will pitching Flusterstorm. My opponent is now down to 2 cards. It's pretty unlikely that they can go off. So my opponent likely has a bunch of fat in their hand, and by that I mean combo pieces. Since they aren't just, like, slamming anything like Ponder or Brainstorm here. So I can play another Ether Vial. I can play a Stoneforge, put in a Sword of Fire and Ice. I can leave this Caracas up. Sort of depends on how risky I would like to be. Sort of the high risk, high reward play is put in Stoneforge, cast Sword of Fire and Ice, not leave Caracas protection open for if my opponent has exactly Sneak Attack, Ancient Tomb or City of Traders, Lotus Petal, and Creature. That's sort of a dream scenario. Alternatively, I can Stoneforge off Vial, get Batterskull, put in Batterskull. That would allow me to leave up Caracas. Or I can just kind of cast this Vial, leave up a Wasteland and a Caracas. I think the situations where my... Can't hold the Lotus Petal into my Violin too, so I doubt it's in their hand. Right, but it could be on the top of their library. I'm going to take an aggressive line. I don't have a ton of interaction here, and I would really like to try to draw, like, anything that matters. So I'm going to just set myself up to draw another card next turn with Sword of Fire and Ice. So tapping the Caracas... Ooh, Spell Pierce. Okay. I don't really think tapping the Caracas is all that risky, honestly. So I'm going to go ahead and tick this Ether Vial up, because I can cast any 2-drop that I need to, but I can't cast any white-white 3-drop right now, or Magus of the Moon. This is a super anemic clock. This is a mom that will probably be attacking, unfortunately. So my opponent probably doesn't have any main deck removal in their deck, so I'm not going to get punished for attacking in with this Mother of Runes. It's also very likely to change the clock. It's a little hard to say what the clock is going to be since my opponent has 2 fetch lands. If we treat them like they're effectively at 13 life, then we have 4 damage a turn and it's a 4-turn clock. But that is very likely to change given sort of any draw on my end or another fetch on their end. Okay, so if my opponent plays Show and Tell, does it matter? Like, okay, they put in an idiot, I will bounce it on my turn. They would have to have, like, to punish me, they would have to have Show and Tell for sneak attack plus extra mana source plus creature. I think that's all fine and well for us. Oh, Port is fantastic. Okay, so we don't beat Omniscience and a creature anyway. Like, absolutely under no circumstances do we beat a Grizzlebrand or an Emrakul off of an Omniscience at this point. Like, that's so bad for us. Yeah, exactly. Bouncing a Grizzlebrand on our turn or their turn doesn't matter. Bouncing an Emrakul on my turn or their turn doesn't matter. If they cast it off Omniscience, we're dead. Ooh, that's decent. If I didn't draw the Port, I would probably consider wasting the fetch, yeah. I might waste the fetch at their end step to just, like, absolutely kill it. Actually, it might be fine right now. Okay, I could see it. Yeah, I'm fine with doing that. Yeah, my opponent also didn't float the mana, which is very convenient for us. So if my opponent would have floated mana, I would not have done that waste play. Alright. So Sneak and Show, we're on the draw, we win. We essentially won because of Thalia and Caracas, but Our opponent did not necessarily draw very well either. Alright, so what are we doing in this matchup? We have Containment Priest, we have Aethersworn Canonist, we have Leon and Relic Warder, and Sanctum Prelate as cards that sort of matter. These Swords to Plowshares are going to be the first thing that comes out. They're very, very bad here. Swords to Plowsharing a Grizzlebrand is never really something that you want to do. To power 86, the deck list is in the description below. It is not something that I have set up yet with MTG Bot. That is on my to-do list, but I keep streaming instead of working on the stream. We also have this Rest in Peace that needs to come out, this Jitte that really should come out, and I'm not even super thrilled with things like Pia and Kieran Noir and Magus of the Moon either. We can bring in Mirran Crusader as a filler card. At Hippity Long Ears, remind me after this match, and I will send you the generic link for the sort of thing that I'm using. Yes, I am using a spreadsheet system to keep track of it. I'm not currently sharing my personal data that I'm collecting, but I'm happy to share the spreadsheet template. I didn't make that. Someone else way better than I did at that sort of stuff did. Do you ever trim a Stoneforge when you only have one equipment? Yeah, absolutely. So, like, I don't have as many cards for this matchup as I would necessarily like. It's possible that I should board in this other Pia and Kieran just as a body that, like, produces more than one body for things like an Emrakul attack trigger, and it's something decent to put in off a show and tell if I don't have anything else. That is probably better than Magus of the Moon number 2. Oh, hey, Chris. All right. So here's a hand. This hand currently doesn't have anything in it that I want, but the Recruiter of the Guard can go and get the Containment Priest or the Sanctum Prelate. But, like, otherwise, I am just not doing anything relevant in the first 2 turns, and I would really like a turn 2 play against this deck. I'm gonna ship this one. This hand is amazing. Like, literal hand-picked best cards for the matchup. And a Cavern. Done. So we have a lot of options for this turn. My opponent led on Volcanic Island Pass. This might mean that they're land heavy and they're trying to get me to Wasteland, or it might mean that, like, they're just planning on an end of turn Brainstorm. Yes, this mulligan was insanely good. Even if it's bait, I will go ahead and take the bait, and I will Wasteland. The upside of this play going right is very, very high. So, chat, the fun thing to think about is what do I put in if they cast Show and Tell? That was just a main phase fetch. Interesting. Are they scared? Are they scared of me scumming them with something like Leon and Arbiter? Is that what is happening? boy. Oh boy, it's happening. It's a blood moon. Okay. The Blood Moon is fine on their end. Like, they're trying to shut off Caracas. It will also keep us from casting either one of the higher-end creatures that we have right now. I'm going to attack with this mom and act like we have nothing. Alright, so there's this show and tell here. This is a really awkward spot. Because we can cast this Containment Priest, but if our opponent puts in Omniscience, then we're in bad shape. We're going to cast Containment Priest anyway, but it's just something to be aware of. My opponent can't really counter this because they only have one other thing in hand. This is just going to give us an opportunity to put in another land. Please not literally Omniscience and Emrakul. It's a sneak attack. We did it, chat. We did it. Oh man. We really did it, chat. Yes, they would need Omniscience and a thingy. They would need both. Yes, praise be to Thalia. So we have our opponent on a 4-turn clock with the 2 creatures that we have right now, and that's pretty good. Based Thalia. So for anyone who hasn't heard me talk about this previously, I actually think this matchup is, like, terrible now. I'm very, very scared of it. Now that they're running so many Omniscience, it's rare that our Containment Priest actually gets to do the Containment Priest things that we want it to do. Did Grizzlebrand attend Thraben University? No. No. I don't know where he went. What do we want to get? Like, there are things that are interesting here. Like, Leona Relic Order is great if I draw another land. Aethersworn Canonist is acceptable. Wingmare is acceptable. Stoneforge is fine. Does Stoneforge put him dead next turn? So I have 5 on board. Sword of Fire and Ice would give us 4 more damage. I could attack in with Mom and have lethal with Stoneforge the next turn. I can't actually cast the Relic Warder. I only have 1 white source because of an opposing Blood Moon. So if I'm not going to kill my opponent next turn by taking a risk, then I'm fine with just grabbing a Phyrexian Revoker. Ooh, actually, if I just get the Leonin Relic Order to cast Show and Tell and have Omniscience, I can Leonin Relic Order the Omniscience. That's not bad. I don't know that Wingmare actually does a ton. Like, it's a fine card, but does it do anything that anything else can't? I think I will lose this game to a Kozilek's Return. I think that's about the only thing that can beat me. If that's the only thing that I'm worried about, then getting a Stoneforge Mystic and putting a sword on Containment Priest would be pretty ideal. So I'm going to get a Stoneforge Mystic. Or actually, that was bad. I couldn't play the Stoneforge to like actually get it in play and matter. That was a punt. I don't think it's going to matter that much because in order to lose, we have to have, or like the opponent has to have exactly Show and Tell, Omni, Big Idiot. Right. So for that game, we were on the draw and we won. So we had Containment Priest for sneak attack there. So Canonist turns off Omni for a turn, but if my opponent... Okay, so just kind of going back to the board there, getting any creature was pretty much irrelevant because I had that Containment Priest in play. So if my opponent casts Show and Tell, then I can't actually put in a creature. Navi Stabber says, loving the red cards. 5-0 in the challenge currently. Played mono white off and on for years. Oh, Navi Stabber, I'm really happy to hear that. I was actually planning on playing in the challenge today myself, but I took a nap, and the nap ended up being 2.5 hours, so I missed the start of the challenge. Navi Stabber, are you playing my build? Have you made any changes? I'm happy to just kind of chat about that for a minute. Topaware 86, because of the opposing Blood Moon, we couldn't actually cast the Relic Warder, and if they Show and Tell, we can't put it in due to our own Containment Priest. I'm playing the 4th Flicker Wisp instead of the main deck Rest in Peace. That's fine. Flicker Wisp was amazing. The mana's a little harder on it in some ways since you're a double cavern build, but you do have the 24th land to compensate for it. I think Bahra, Ayati, and I are all on 3 Flicker Wisps in our red-white builds. One thing to keep in mind is you also do tick your Vial up to 4 somewhat frequently, so it's not always just there at the end game for when you draw the Wisp. Yeah, so instead of the Stoneforge, so like thinking about the play again, Getting either a Canonist or a Wingmare would have been better than what I did. Okay, so somebody asked about spreadsheet data. Let me see if I have that. What would I propose to cut for the third cavern? The other people playing this build play the third cavern over my third plateau, but I wanted one more fetchable land in the deck. I was getting close to running out of fetchables in some of the longer matchups like Miracles and Check Pile, so it was something that was on my radar. Yeah, so that spreadsheet is what I've been using. I'm relatively happy with it. Sometimes you have to manually update your losses. That might have been due to something that I messed up when I was setting up the spreadsheet, or it might be because I'm submitting my data with by just typing it into Excel rather than submitting it via Google Forms like they want you to do. But it's fine. Whatever Bryant Cook has as well that was posted in the chat earlier is also probably pretty good. I like having at least 13 white sources in general, so I like having the plateau. Let me look at this here. Oh, sorry, collection. So I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I'm at 14 by playing the plateau over the cavern. The cavern would put me at 13. Remember that we're playing a 24th land. Cavern does have a real cost. While we're on that topic, what doesn't Cavern do? Cavern doesn't get, assuming you put it on human, Cavern doesn't get Rest in Peace, Stoneforge, Wingmare, Flicker Wisp in the main deck, as well as Swords to Plowshares. In the sideboard, it doesn't get Path, Rest in Peace, Relic Warder, Cataclysm. So there is a very real cost of playing a Cavern. But the Cavern does have huge upside. You know, uncounterable Magus of the Moon and Pia and Kieran, Jailer, Thalia, all of that stuff being uncounterable is very, very tilting for our control deck friends. Yes, absolutely. Uncounterable Thalia is gas. So thank you for everyone who is turning into the stream so far. We are currently 2-0 in this league. These cataclysms mean you are like seriously in trouble if you drop white sources too much. Yeah, if you're trying to cast anything like Gideon or Cataclysm, and you are shaving too much on the whites, like true white sources, that really matters. All right, let's go into our next match here, and sort of Chris, on the topic of Cataclysm, if you get rid of one or two of your planes when you cast Cataclysm, or one or two of your true white sources, that can be really, really rough on casting your spells after that. Cataclysm should usually win you the game when you cast it, but that is not necessarily true. Alright, we've been paired. Alright, so our opponent is Sneak Attack Kid. No tournament results for them. So we are on the play. And we have a reasonable hand that has a lot of mana disruption. So we are going to keep this hand. Gideon is a great card in the mono white build. I think it's a mediocre card in the red-white build due to the differences in the deck. Hope our opponent likes Wastelands. Oh, you bet I do. Uh-oh. Burn. Hey, maybe we'll just mana screw our opponent and they don't have a second land. That'd be great, right? Yeah, at 2 power 86, I run 3 Path to Exile like Atai does in his build. I think it's very, very good in this shell. All right, lots of great draws. That is not a great draw. This does make our Wastelands less great, yes. Two power 86. The answer to that is yes. I have a donate button on my website. I am hoping to get to partner status very soon so that I can do subscription stuff. Searing Blood in the main deck. What a beating. What a beating. Oh, our Sanctum Prelate is in the sideboard, isn't it? Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. So I can Recruiter, get Stoneforge, cast Jitte here, which is a pretty aggressive turn. Alternatively, I can Recruiter, get Stoneforge, get Batterskull, or Recruiter, get Flicker Wisp, Recruiter for more value. Lots and lots of lines here. In game 1, I like to stabilize and gain some life, so we're going to get Stoneforge and Jitte and make them answer it. Two power, 86. I'm really glad to hear that. Alright, so Chris says, I would just pass the turn, played Port turn 3, and plan to use Vile Flicker Wisp to deny another mana. So I am worried about the game going long with Vile. Ugh, these lands. These lands are rough. So our opponent is probably going to point a removal spell at literally whatever we equip this to. So we're going to throw it on the Recruiter first. It'll probably get killed. And then it sort of still looks like we have a Stoneforge activation up for right now. They're smart enough to not do this prior to combat. Ah, more Searing Blood? Rough. So we're playing out another Wasteland because we're pretty scared of Price of Progress. That card is going to be very, very good against us if that happens. Yeah, I am very surprised that we are still at 14, given that our opponent has had double Searing Blood. I think Searing Blood is a great metagame choice right now. Our opponent has exiled a Rift Bolt. That might mean great things for us. We're going to give them the old Vile Pump Fake to see if they play around anything here. Ugh. Alright, there's a Lightning Bolt. Agreed. Burn opponent does not want to lose to D&T. They have made that very, very clear. So I am leaving up Wasteland as opposed to Swords to Plowshares because I am more scared of Price of Progress than I am of like a random Goblin Guide coming off or something. Alright. Oh, jeez. So what am I doing? If I play this port, I port my opponent twice. I can then Swords to Plowshares the Eidolon and leave up one Wasteland. A Price of Progress will kill me if I do this. Yeah, the floods are real and it's all non-basics too. So let's do the thing that 100% has to happen. We will take 2 damage from this Eidolon either way. So we will Swords to Plowshares this now. We will go to 6. Day 30, still no sign of creatures. Yeah. So if I Wasteland and get 2 of my own lands right now, then I can go down to taking 0 from a Price to Progress. Or I can port my opponent twice to keep them from playing things like Eidolon, Flame Rift, Searing Blood, Sulfuric Vortex. If I double port, then my opponent can't cast a Price of Progress that they draw right now, unless they have another land. Ugh. This is game 1, so I don't need to worry about Smash. Since I'm dead to so many things, I am going to play the port. Like, I don't think I can play around both Price of Progress and them having any 2 spells that matter. We'll try to choke them on mana and see what happens. And they float a mana. I can stagger this activation between draw step and now, but if I do so and they draw Price of Progress, I die. So we will go all in here. Show it to me, because they can still cast a Price of Progress if they have it right now. All right, they don't. Bluff check passed. Alright, there's a Monastery Swiftspear. This is fine. This is 100% fine. Unless they have Fire Blast, then I die. Do the old Vile Pump Fake to see if they have a Fire Blast they want to respond to. Nope, they're F6'd. Why? Why, chat? Why? But their hand might be 2 more Searing Bloods for all we know. We use all our luck against Sneak and Show. That is correct. So this matchup is very, very bad for the red-white version. Like we are dead to literally any spell. Like any 3 damage spell. That is a card. That does things. All right, so there's that price of progress. That's fine. All right, that was rough. All right, so we're playing against Burn. We were on the play. We lost. We lost to our Flood. The 2x Searing Blood didn't help either. We'll be on the play for this next one. Yeah, like you can't be too mad about losses like that. So we will bring in these Path to Exiles. We will bring in these Aethersworn Canonists. We're fine with this Relic Warder. We're fine with this Sanctum Prelate. I'm going to get rid of this Rest in Peace. It does nothing. Similarly, Magus of the Moon is not where we want to be. We don't want to fetch up non-basics for Pia and Kieran. Path to Exile also has this upside of blanking a Searing Blood trigger, which is probably going to be relevant in these games. Yeah, so I usually cut the Revokers here. Our opponent is unlikely to be on Grim Lavamancer if they have all these Searing Bloods. Like they have chosen their additional removal in that way. And I think last night I might have brought in 2 Path to Exiles. I feel like I'm missing something here. Because last night we had this discussion about whether or not I should leave the Jailer. And I was leaving it, so I cut something else. I cut the Recruiters last night with this build. I feel like I cut the Recruiters. I don't have anything that's like amazing to fetch up. Like Prelate is fine, Relic Order is fine, but if I'm at the point where I'm recruitering, I'm probably already winning. Okay, yeah. So I cut the Recruiters last night so I could bring in Mirren Crusader just as a generic beat stick. And then I left Palace Jailer in the deck. No, I cut a fetch land. I went down to 23 lands. Because I don't want to really draw fetches in this matchup since it costs life. I cut that fetch. I think. Oh no, this is what I ended up doing. I kept the recruiters, cut a fetch, and then I had recruiters for prelate or Stoneforge. Oh man, what happened with my sideboarding? Oh, I didn't hit submit, and so it just doesn't sideboard. That is tilting. Luckily, our hand's pretty great. Yeah, that's pretty tilting, Chris. Not gonna lie. But we're drawing like a beast. So there's that. Could also be the sideboard bug. Great, there's a sideboard bug. So we're gonna need to follow this up with Mom and Stoneforge on our next turn. That is pretty ideal. Oh, and super bonus Stoneforge too. So since we have a second Stoneforge, we're going to get Batterskull with the first and force them to answer this Stoneforge. We will then deploy the second Stoneforge, which gets Jitte, and that one will likely be protected by Mother of Runes. All right, my opponent has just conceded to the Batterskull. That's great. All right, so now we actually sideboard for this game. Path in, Canonist in, Relic Order, Prelate in, one fetch out, Rip out, Revokers out, red cards out. To me, him not having Stoneforge signals a shatter effect or death. Accurate. Draw for this game. We kind of lucked out that game, honestly. Our sideboard didn't submit properly, and we drew mostly perfect cards for the matchup, with the exception of the dead Pia and Kieran Galar. Our opponent has mulliganed, so we're going to keep this hand. This hand is okay. It has Vial, it has Mom, it has Canonist, and a Sword. If our opponent has a really aggressive creature-based start, and removal for the Mom, it might be problematic. I say as they play Swift Spear. Ooh. So do I want to cast this Swords to Plowshares on the Swift Spear now, or do I want to play the Vial? I only have 2 creatures in hand. If I cast the Vial now, I will get it under an Eidolon, which can matter, and give my opponent a chance to play a better creature for me to Swords. So I will lead on the Vial. We're going to lead off Plateau, just because it's a true white source for this Swords, and we don't have a basic. So my plan is Swords to Plowshare my opponent's creature on the next turn, Vial in Mom, then have Canonist as Vial on the following turn, followed by Hardcast Sword. And we should be in pretty good shape if we don't just take a billion D damage. I'm just going to pass here and give my opponent to cast another spell just at my face. Anything that can potentially keep this Mother of Runes alive is fantastic. If I end up giving my opponent 1 more life due to a prowess trigger, I don't really mind that. So like we wait for the Declare Blocker stage, we don't have anything, and they might Price of Progress me for 4. Alright, we are dead to 2 spells at this point. Plains is a decent draw. So we need to gain life next turn. Absolutely next turn. I have the land to do that, which means I'm going to be fetching Stoneforge, or I'm going to be fetching Jitte with Stoneforge. I can keep the Stoneforge as a surprise off the Vial by hardcasting the Canonist. So that's what I'm going to do. Our opponent has double instants. We're kind of sad. Because they can do 1 on their turn, 1 on our turn. Otherwise, we're looking good. But I expect to be dead. Lava Spike me. Go to a precarious 3. Are we dead? Are we dead? Are we dead? Are we dead? Alright. What would I want to vial in? Vialing in a prelate would be gas. Vialing in a Thalia would be fine. Vialing in a Flicker Wisp would be fine. Let's tick up. Alright, well, we're committed. Here we go. Alright, so they fire blasted me. I don't know if I like the timing of that fire blast, because if I was at 3 life, I guess that's fine. If they wait for me to tap out for Jitte, then it can't be, I can't Swords to Plowshare one of my own guys in response to get up to 5 life. Okay, no, that's fine timing. Sadly, Thraben University is very flammable. Yes, especially in its current form of the red-white build. All those books, all those knowledge. All right, so lost to burn. We don't really expect to win that one, so that's fine. So game 3. We basically lost because the opponent had sort of entirely direct burn. We had sort of the opportunity to win that game, but it did not work out. Put my summary here. That's a loss. All right, I'm gonna leave the deck list up for a second here. I'm going to run to the restroom, and then we will get the next one started. You all can have about a minute of chair stream. Sadly, this is the price of progress. Please. I like that. There's a chair emote. That's kind of amazing. They have an emote for everything, I guess. All right, getting back in the queue. Currently 2-1. We're ahead. We lost to a matchup we expect to lose to. A-okay with that. Wow, that was quick. Friziel. I feel like I played against them like yesterday. Friziel is playing Ants. This has a turn 2 play against Ant, technically. Let's try to find a Thalia, though. Oh, boy. This is not ideal. This is worse than the first hand, really. Is my 5 going to be better? I think a 5 with 2 lands and a Thalia would be good, would be like way better than this hand. Like, we have a turn 3 Revoker as our first interaction. If I spike a land, this is as good as the first hand. I think this is too slow. Wait, are we on the draw? No, we're on the play. This is still questionable. I'll ship this. Unplayable. We'll keep this one, it has a land. Guess we'll put that on top. We're not getting there this hand. I'm kind of hoping my opponent just turn ones me so I don't feel bad either way. This is just like the match from yesterday where my opponent Gitaxian probes twice. Do you think they're going to go off after double Gitaxian probe just like yesterday? It was like 12 hours ago at this point. Maybe today in your time zone. The first round of this league was against Grizzled Wizard, who was playing Sneak and Show, I think. Friziel was on Ant, and I think that was in the last league, because we're 2-1 right now. So it looks like a Revoker hand on LED would have been very good against this draw. But, like, I don't think the 6-land Revoker hand was good enough. And I don't think... Like, so this was our turn 2. A Revoker on turn 3 wouldn't have been good enough either. Like, we can draw... They're still. Oh yeah, they're just doing the fast and flames. We're dead. I'll see if they misclick, but we're very dead. Why didn't they crack this other LED? Wait, did they just crack for blue, chat? Oh. Oh, they already cast fast and flames. Okay. Let me just go ahead and write loss in the spreadsheet here. Stormcat's a billion D, right? Yeah, we'll concede. We don't need to make them click all that. Alright, so we get Canonist, we get Rest in Peace, we get Relic Order. Get in here, guys. We'll get Prelate, and we'll get Cataclysm as something against Goblins. We will take out the Swords to Plowshares. We'll take out the Jitte. We'll take out Palace Jailer and Pia and Kieran. And then I have to go and make one more cut. Cut a Magus of the Moon. I'm going to check my notes from yesterday and see what sort of hate they were playing. I think we saw Dread of Night from them yesterday. I don't have it written down, but I feel like that happened in my last match against Ant, and that was my last match against Ant, right? Yeah, so I think they have Dread of Night. Yeah, so we decided because my opponent had Dread of Night, I wanted a couple more non-one tough one white things. So we put in the Mirren Crusader and we kept the other Magus. Yeah. I mean, we lost that one to our mulligans. Like, we mulligan trying to get a turn to Thalia, and we did not get that, and we wouldn't have had the possibility for that turn to Revoker on either one of those hands unless we hit with the Scry on the second one, and the first one wasn't good enough to keep. Alright, hand's great. We'll keep it. So normally I would lead on not planes, but I really don't think that my opponent has Massacre in their deck since they had Dread of Night before. So I don't think I'm going to play around Massacre. I'm just going to play out the planes to make casting something like a Leon and Relic Order possible off this Cavern of Souls later. Do I ever change my land drop if I'm blind at a paper event? Yeah, absolutely. I will often try to masquerade as other decks for a turn or two, if I can. Like, if I hadn't played against this opponent previously, I would have led on Rishadenport Ether Vial instead of Plains Ether Vial, intending to play Cavern of Souls on turn 2 on Human. But since I know at least a little something about my opponent's deck list, I can make an informed decision that is very unlikely that my opponent has Massacre. Alright, that is not an irrelevant draw. Yeah, actually, there have been a few games where like there's that Dreadnought, where like I 100% knew that my opponent was going to just kill me before anything I did mattered. So I put my Cavern on like Merfolk or something to just slightly change how they might sideboard. All right. Yeah, we have two creatures that can survive Dread of Night. I'm just gonna go ahead and Canonist now. There is some value in like waiting for them to start casting something and then doing it. But if they have like some weird combination of spells where they end up casting a ritual and some other things in response, it could be bad for me. I don't think I need to get cute here. This board is very good. So given that I sideboarded out most of the Flicker Wisps, I'm going to go ahead and leave my Vial at 2 for the time being. That's great. Alright, so they are just playing that LED out as to not discard it. Second piece is probably not doing anything, but we'll play it out anyway. There's literal no cost to doing so, since our ports are turned off. Alright, our opponent has scooped it up. Alright, so we win that one. Game 2, we have Canonist, Magus, and Rip. It'll be on the draw for Game 3. And I think I like everything that we've done so far. So sometimes the Ant and D&T matchups are elaborate dances, but more often than not, they end up being these weird, sort of one-sided landslides where I stick a Thalia or a Canonist and they lose, or they just go off before my turn too, or they have a Dread of Night and I don't do anything. That's kind of how this matchup tends to go. It's not particularly the most interesting Magic in the world. It's fine, but sometimes it's just I've got it or you got it, and that's all there is to it, unfortunately. All right, come on, opponent. Opponent is still deciding whether or not to play first. Very exciting, I know. I guess I'll take a look at my sort of path to partner on Twitch real quick here. I am one step away from finishing the achievements for Path to an Affiliate. I just need to stream for 7 unique days in the last month. I'll probably just have that knocked out by the end of the week here. I'll probably do at least a short stream each day to get that objective. My Path to Partner, I need to stream for at least 12 days in a month, stream for 25 hours in the last 30 days, and reach 75 average viewers in the last month. Those all seem like they're reasonable things that I might be able to get in the next month or so here. I'd like to become a partner relatively quickly so I can like start doing all the cool stuff with like the subscription features and whatnot. Do I find Dread of Night or Massacre to be the more difficult card to play against? Well, they both suck. They're both really difficult to deal with. I guess Massacre is scarier because like it can take down a board of like Thalia plus Canonist plus Revoker plus Mom, whereas Dread of Night doesn't stop Revoker or Canonist. So I guess I'm more scared of Massacre. Although with Massacre, you do sometimes have the opportunity to go and like just completely play around it by not playing out of planes. Although your opponent can still just like Dark Ritual Massacre you. This is sort of annoying. Chad, if you've got any questions about D&T builds or anything like that, this is a great time because our opponent is doing something other than playing Magic right now. Oh, hey, I hear noises. We're going to mulligan this hand. It does not have the possibility of casting this Canonist. How I considered Weathered Wayfarer? I own a couple. I have tried it previously. Ooh. On the play, I would probably keep this hand. Prelate might be fast enough, but on the draw, I really want like anything to do on turn 2. I think the chances of me getting a turn 2 play are higher with a mulligan than with a scry. Like with a scry, we get 3 looks at cards, whereas with a mulligan, we'll get 5, 6, 7, 8 looks at cards. So I'll ship this one. Oh, geez. This is terrible. I don't really know that Weathered Wayfarer does anything that I need. So, if I hit a land, I have Rest in Peace as a turn 2 play. If I hit 2 lands, I have Wingmare as a turn 3 play. But the land needs to be a white source. So what can we... How many hits do we have for a white source? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 14 hits for a white source and 3 looks at cards to hit it. So we have 14 out of 55 hits, 3 looks. Not great. Not great at all. Is this better than 4? I'll keep. All right. We have a turn 2 interactive play with decent follow-up as well. Like if we lose this, it's sort of unfortunate that like we're not going to have any games of Magic that were actually interactive. Like I lost game 1 to my mulligans, I'm probably going to lose game 3 to my mulligans, and game 2 was a landslide in my favor. All right, my opponent shuffled with the Ponder, so that's great. So we're going to play out the Wasteland because they know about it, and we're just going to try to represent like we didn't necessarily draw the land. Although they'll probably suspect we have it since we scried to the top, but they might not have paid attention to that. It'll be telling whether they Cabal Therapy the Wingmare or the Rest in Peace. Oh, they named Stoneforge Mystic. They might be on a Goblin plan. Or their hand might just be very slow. We have a chance. So we have taken our opponent off a Past in Flames kill. We have taken them off of Threshold for Cabal Ritual. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet, but a land would be great. We whiff there. Abrupt Decay for the rest in peace? Sure. Oh, that was a mistake. I should have wastelanded my opponent in response to that Abrupt Decay. Very marginal, but it could be the difference between Threshold and not Threshold. Do I want to wasteland my opponent is now the question. I don't think I do. Like, it takes them off of a mana, but I need to draw a land and hit this Wingmare, I think, to stay in this game. Or if I draw, like, a Thalia or a Revoker or a Canonist, I can cast it with the lands I have. If I wasteland my opponent, I take out those things as outs. It's bad if my opponent is sort of choked on mana, but I can't see them going off on 5 cards with no graveyard right now. Their hand would have to be really, really good. Ugh, Dread of Night is rough. Canonist, Plains. Well, now I'll wasteland my opponent. It'll be interesting to see if my opponent names the Wingmare still, even though they have a Dread of Night, or whether they'll take my Batterskull. They took the Batterskull. For restock after I'm... yeah, okay. Alright, well, that Recruiter is good, but not quite good yet. We need one more land. Alright. This is why we need Council's Judgment. Yes, I bring in Council's Judgment in the Ant matchup 100% of the time for this very reason, until my opponent shows me Massacre. Alright, so, chat, what do I want to get? Do I just want to get Canonist, or do I want to get Prelate? I think I want Canonist. I don't know when you became a moderator, Disgruntled Elk, but I don't mind it. Let me get the Canonist. I tried out the mod command once last night. Maybe I modded you. Let's try that again. Let's mod Moxall. I know you. All right. So this is becoming one of those games that is actually interactive and sort of interesting. If my opponent takes this Canonist off the table, we've got a real game. Otherwise, I'm in very good shape for a little while here. They're probably pretty close to going off, but they might have some clunky things in hand. I'm warning everyone, he'll get paired against elves and we all get banned. Fair. Alright, Pyroclasm. We dead? We look like we're dying. But it could just be like an ad nauseum, and we might not be guaranteed dead. Well, we're probably dead. He'll own elves, ban him. Ugh. Don't tell everyone. Alright, we died. Alright. So we just lost to Ant there. We'll see if we can win this last one to go ahead and break even, or I guess get slightly ahead for this one. So game 3, we almost won despite mulligans. Mulled a 5 there. Ziggy Stardust. I know I've played this player before, but it's been a while. It looks like the most recent thing they were on was 4-color control, but they've played a lot of different decks in the past, so that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I'm on the draw. I'll keep this hand. Since my opponent plays a lot of different decks, I'm not going to like mulligan for something that might be better against 4-color control. Let's try to stick the vial. It happened. Great. Ooh, Wasteland is fantastic. So, in an attempt to play around a Stifle, I'm going to go ahead and Wasteland in their upkeep, unless they do something with their mana in my end step. No Stifle. And we are just going to run away with this match if they just have a Wasteland here. Drawing a 2-drop here of any nature would be amazing. That's great. That's great. We're not gonna just, like, cast it, get Jitte. We will 100% play around counter magic this match. Yes, I am a big believer in taking and eating the entire bowl of fun, and I plan on doing just that. I think my opponent is going to have very little say in it. All right, the opponent just scoops it into the Mom and Stoneforge combo. They don't have anything going on here. My opponent is in all likelihood playing Grixis Delver, so I'm going to sideboard for that. So we are playing against Ziggy Stardust. We just won that with a Wasteland. The rest of what we did was irrelevant. Do I waste the waste if I draw it? Absolutely. We'll get them. Alright, so we're going to bring in Paths. We're going to bring in Rest in Peace. We're going to bring in Mirran Crusader. Going to board out the Revokers. Going to board out the Recruiters for being slow. I think I sided on boarding out the 2 4-drops because they're hard to cast and slow. And I think this is what I ended up submitting previously for this matchup. We're really, really heavy on the removal front here. The goal is to win with 0 permanents on the other side. Absolutely. So folks, this is an interesting hand. It doesn't really do anything early on, but it has double Wasteland and 3 lands beyond that. This hand is really good if my opponent does not lead on the card Deathrite Shaman. My opponent leads on Deathrite Shaman, this hand is bad. Otherwise, this hand is pretty solid. We're on the draw, so we get an extra look at a 2-drop that matters. This is in between. I'd 100% mulligan this on the play. On the draw, this still should probably go back. It is risky. Even if we waste, we don't have anything before turn 3. Yeah, but our goal with this hand is not to waste once, but to waste twice. I'm going to ship this one. A hand with a Stoneforge or a Thalia might just be safer than this. It's close, though. I like this hand. So we're going to put this on top. There's something awkward about this hand. We can be wasted off of our only white source. Let's try to get him. So if we had kept the 7-card hand with double Wasteland, it's very possible that if this Delver naturally flips, it would just get us. Alright, there's the natural flip, and we know our opponent has a Daze now. Oh, that's bad. Alright, we are probably just getting Delvered this game. This is something that happens to the mono-white build more than, or excuse me, to the red-white build more than the mono-white build. You know, you can be wasted off your own stuff. But if we draw another white source, we have double removal spell in our hands, and we're actually not that bad off. Yeah, so Disgruntled Elk, it's possible that I should have just shipped the Rest in Peace to the bottom looking for another land, because a Wasteland would be so detrimental to our hand. Wasteland is a fickle mistress, but we're well aware of that. All right. So I'm going to play this and try to remove the Delver in their upkeep. Again, let's play around the Stifle if we can play around the Stifle. Not that I think my opponent is necessarily playing Stifle, but we'll see. Alright, so some things are starting to go right. Oh man, the opponent is missing on land with 7 cards in hand. And now we get to play around the days with this Stoneforge? Seems great. So since my opponent has 7 cards in hand and like none of them are things that they're playing right now, they probably have a Fistful of Removal, so I'm not going to get Batterskull, I'm just going to get Jete. And promptly expect this Stoneforge Mystic to die. Like, I 100% see a Fatal Push coming right here. We could Path to Exile this Stoneforge, but that's pretty greedy. Hymn to Turok. I accept. Ooh, it looks like our opponent is Bug Delver, not Grixis Delver. If that's the case, I'm going to value getting this Rest in Peace in play over just putting a clock in play. Like, my opponent just might have a Rest in Peace for it, but if they have a Rest in Peace for it, then that's something that doesn't go after the Stoneforge. Since I lost my Path to Exile in the Hymn to Turok, I can't answer a creature that hits the board. So if my opponent plays any sort of creature that matters, I have to deal with it. Whereas now, I'm worried about their Delvers, and that's basically it. So despite the fact that we took a beating very early on in this match, our opponent stumbled a lot. Alright, there's a Tarmogoyf. So I think it's likely that my opponent has an Abrupt Decay. I give priority to Rest in Peace because everything my opponent can do matters with their graveyard. And I don't want it to get hymned or thought seized. Like, that is the one card in my hand that is most likely to just save me. So here I can Stoneforge for Batterskull, but I think my opponent probably has removal. But if they remove the Stoneforge, then they can't deal with the Rest in Peace as well, and I'm not taking any damage. So I could play the Thalia to choke them on mana. But I'm going to give them 2 different must-answer cards. They might have shuffled away the days with the Brainstorm. Wait, no, they cast Brainstorm and they did not shuffle yet. So they still have a daze, or there's a daze potentially in the top 2 cards of their library. Yeah, at this exact moment, there are only 2 relevant threats in their deck, unless they also have something like Liliana the Last Hope. Yeah, so here they're representing the Abrupt Decay. I'm not going to block. I'm not going to give them the possibility of a blowout. If they hit me for 0, they hit me for 0, and it's kind of cute. So this should be the Abrupt... Ooh, Golgari Charm. That's good to know about for later. So they should Wasteland me here to put a land in the graveyard as well to sneak 2 damage. Alright, so they really also need a pollute, to fetch something with the polluted delta that will let them get rid of the Stoneforge. So like fetching into a Fatal Push here would be great. But no, not happening. We're getting the Batterskull. And a Path to Exile as further backup. Fantastic. Yeah, I've lost to turn 2 Liliana the Last Hope so many times. So if I were to take a guess, they might have just shuffled away the days there. Well, we'll take this moment to put in our Batterskull. The Tarmogoyf might get very big here. Tarmogoyf got very big here. Luckily, we still have the Path to Exile for it. That's really ideal, all things considered. Let's see if our opponent has a force. Ooh, they did not. So now we get to port them off of double black, so they won't get to do something like Hymn to Turok us or Liliana the Last Hope us. We've probably got this one from here. We're going to choose to do the Bayou rather than the Underground Sea so that our opponent can't Brainstorm in response to this. Yeah, like we're not necessarily out of trouble yet. Like if our opponent sticks a True Name, then all of a sudden our board is garbage. This is okay. That's a fine draw. Alright. Alright, so now we will see if our opponent has that daze that they may or may not have shuffled back from before. If they don't, we're very far ahead. More so than we already are. Alright, they kept the daze. That's fine. We're not going to keep the recipes for long enough to, like, play it around days, because we don't know when we'll draw a land. And if we draw a land, it's likely that we're going to want to Flicker Wisp either the Stoneforge or the Batterskull, depending on what happens in these next couple of turns. Alright, there is a monstrous Tarmogoyf. Luckily, we are up to 16 life, so we can take some cracks from it. Ooh! Chat, we're drawing like a monster. So we are at 20 life against Delver with a Batterskull in play. That's a pretty good position to be in. Toxic Deluge, Liliana, Tombstalker. Okay. So Tombstalker holds the board for a while. We can eventually get through this. Like, if we draw enough lands, we just move the Batterskull to the Thalia, or to the Stoneforge Mystic, and then that gets through. The opponent can't attack with the Tombstalker at the current time. Although they can start attacking with this Delver as soon as it flips. Alright, so my opponent has a Brainstorm. Like, we're on a 7-turn clock to this Delver. That's plenty of time to find anything that matters. The Flicker Wisp can also potentially unflip the Delver or trade with it. I don't really know if my opponent should have cast this Brainstorm there. Like, they're obligated to play whatever they have, and they can't shuffle away these cards. This might have been an opportunity where it's fine to just wait a turn or two on the Brainstorm. Fatal Push on the Germ token. Alright, they're getting in there. A land off the top would be absurdly good. Absurdly, absurdly good. We will get to reset this Batterskull. Ooh, we did it, chat. Since we're already exposing our Caracas to Wasteland, we're going to go ahead and just get a Plateau here. No, we're resetting it with Flicker Wisp. Yeah, although I guess we're not moving that Batterskull over because of the Null Rod. Alright. That is decent here. Yep. this is not a great time to be drawing land. Our answer is attacking it, which we can't do right now. So effectively, our answer to this card is draw a removal spell for the Tomb Stalker. Alright, Cavern of Souls. So if we don't attack in with this Batter Skull, we die to both Tombstalker and Insectile Aberration attacking in. So we will go ahead and unfortunately attack with this Batter Skull and throw away the Germ. And we're still pretty dead at that point. But so be it. And we'll go ahead and attack in with both. I think they're very unlikely to just block the Stoneforge Mystic here and let their Liliana take 4. I think we're basically on no outs at this point. Alright, so now the question is, do we want to bring some Revokers back in for Liliana of the Last Hope now that we know my opponent has it? Like, the card is so cripplingly good against us that the answer might be yes. Like, the rest of our game plan is pretty well set up to deal with everything they're doing. I don't think I want to board in a bunch of, like, situationally good cards if I'm going to leave the recruiters in the board. Like, if I leave the recruiters in, then things like Lay on a Relic Warder for a Null Rod seem fine, but, like, the Null Rod is probably a one of. Now that we know we're playing against Bug and not Grixis, I do like the Jailer more. Yeah, I agree that our opponent was correct to scoop that early in game 1. So I like the Jailer. What do I cut to bring the Jailer in? I'm going to trim 1 Thalia to bring the Jailer in. It doesn't have lands. This has lands. So I'll change my logs to bug delver. We'll keep this. This flicker wisp can go on bottom. So we lost that game. Alright, so game 2, lost to Lily last. Alright, you have a delver. Let's try to make you not have a delver. I don't think I'm going to show the wasteland to him yet. I think I'm just going to show him a cavern on human. And slam his rest in peace. Opponent probably doesn't have days. And we stuck a rest in peace. Following up with a Mirran Crusader will be probably stupid good. I'm just keeping Wingmare as something that is going to block a Delver. So my opponent probably has an Abrupt Decay if they're going to just ram out this Tarmogoyf, or that is their plan. This Crusader is likely to go all the way in this matchup. I think I want to try to keep my opponent... Yeah, so they can have Abrupt Decay or they can have Golgari Charm. I think I'm going to try to keep my opponent off of cantripping and blow up this Underground Sea. If they have an Abrupt Decay for the Rest in Peace, we can path to exile the Tarmogoyf, and then follow it up with an uncounterable Mirran Crusader the following turn. This Tarmogoyf does literal nothing right now, but I'm fine with taking it off the board. Like, my opponent can have plenty of spells in hand, and this is just for the sake of tempo here. Like, I find it very likely that at some point in this game, this Rest in Peace dies, and the Tarmogoyf would be an issue. So just taking it off while I have nothing else to do is great. Well, not great, but fine. I don't think so. We mana screwed our opponent. They have literal nothing to do right now. Like, our opponent is discarding him to Torox here. I think that probably means our opponent has another Hymn to Turok. So we're just going to go ahead and get the Jitte and put the Jitte in play, rather than get the Batterskull, which is just objectively better. Sure, they might have edicts. Alright, so next turn, do I kill with Crusader? So Crusader gets pumped twice. That puts it up to 6 power, 12 power, 13, 14, 15, 16 power, 17 with the Stoneforge Mystic. So no, I don't kill with it this turn. Yes, this is the control play rather than the aggro play. Oh yeah, we are going to do a billion D damage with Crusader here. So do I want to hit him for 7, or do I want to hit him for 11? I think I'd rather hit him for 11. Crusader is going to get through any card other than... Or actually, I'll leave one counter so that I can get rid of a Delver of Secrets. No, I have infinite removal spells. Let's get them. All right. So we ended up 3-2 that league. Oop. Sorry, just typed something wrong in my spreadsheet. Give me 1 second here to finish up. Game 3 win with Crusader and Jitte. So we ended up 3-2 that league. We played against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We played against Red Black Reanimator, Ant, Sneak and Show, Burn, Ant, Bug Delver. Or wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, we started with Ant. Ant, Sneak and Show, Burn, Ant, Bug Delver. So that's a decent representative set of matchups there. We ended up 3-2 with our losses to Burn, which we expect to lose, and Ant, which is sort of a coin flip matchup. So pretty happy with the progress there. Let's take a look at how our numbers from today have changed my overall percentages with the deck. So we are currently 57 and 31, which is about 65% with the red-white taxes build. Pretty happy with that. I'm likely to go ahead and stream some more tomorrow in order to work towards making partner. I need to stream a whole bunch of days, like 12 days in a month, and I'm not too worried about making that happen. So thank you all for watching today. If you care about this stream, feel free to go ahead and follow it and help my channel grow. Long term, I'm looking to get to 75 average viewers. I've already had 100 viewers or more on some of these, so I think that's a reasonable goal. Thank you all for hanging around in the chat today, and it was very fun. I need to go restock on some items on Pokemon Go and eat some dinner, so I'll catch you all later. Goodbye.